Today we're going to do a case study on misdiagnosis of Parkinson's disease. You're going to learn why diagnoses really aren't what people think that they are. They don't really mean what people think that they mean, and how often they're just a mistake. So this is your Health Reclaimed, where we expose root causes that fuel Lyme and chronic illness so you can finally heal, helping you to understand and heal the root cause of Lyme and chronic illness so you can reclaim your health and restore your life. I'm Dr. Brad, veteran functional medicine doctor. We've got a 4-decade history of helping people that have been to a multitude of doctors with no help at all get healthy again. And this is one of those cases. So today we're going to do it's just a case study on a misdiagnosis of Parkinson's. If we look at the history, there's a long history of a plethora of health problems. There has been gut issues. There has been Lyme disease from 30 years ago. A multitude of different types of caregivers have been involved with this, from natural to medical to specialist, seeing the whole gamut of them. There's way more than 10 doctors in this, and a phenomenal amount of money spent on it with virtually no help whatsoever. So we look at some of the indications going on. There's obviously hormonal dysregulation with all of this. There's been a fair amount of gut issues. This person has cleaned their diet up really well, and the diet is exemplary for what I typically see. They're trying really hard, but as most people are, they don't have much direction in it. They're just guessing on what they should do, and that doesn't help with chronic illness. There's always a problem with food intolerances. The lab tests are 2 to 3% accurate, and that's because they don't really know all of the different reactions that are caused. They typically just measure IgE. Sometimes they'll throw an IgM test in there too, and those two immunoglobulins only account to 2 to 3% of the food intolerance responses. And they don't know what the other ones are, so they don't know how to test them. And this is the reality of a lot of lab tests. So we have that going on. There's been herbs taken, there's been supplements taken, there's been pharmaceuticals taken. They're presently on a boatload full of medicines trying to manage all these symptoms. And that's all they're doing, is trying to manage symptoms. They're not addressing the real root cause. And this person's trying. They really haven't had a life for quite a few years because they've just been so sick. So we did an evaluation. Our evaluations are extremely extensive. And the reason why they're extensive isn't that I'm trying to get the world record for the most insane exams that are out there. The reason why they're so extensive is it takes this level of evaluation to really find what problems are and how to resolve those. Mark Hyman, his extensive evaluations consist of 100 tests. We're 4.5 times that. A friend is a top functional medicine doc in a different part of the country. His metabolic tests are 52. We're 5 times that. And as I said, it's not because I just love to test, but it takes this level of testing to unwind cases like this, to find out what's really going on. And there's significant improvement in a very short period of time, like a week. And this is a case from a while ago. So I'll give some updates in some future shows. So we look at some of the testing, what we found in there. We look at the whole hormonal axis, and most people look at the HPA axis. I do the HPAGTP axis. We got the hypothalamus. It's in the base of the brain. It registers the circulating levels of all the hormones. It communicates through a short vein into the pituitary gland, which sends out pro-hormone signals to all the hormonal glands. The first gland it hits is the thyroid. It's right here. The pineal is right next to the pituitary. That's where you make dopamine. That's your feel-good hormone, and that's really critical. We look at the parathyroid. That looks at your calcium metabolism, and that's vitally important. Calcium is the most important mineral in all life forms. We're talking from the soil, from the water, from the sea, through plants, reptiles, fish, birds, mammals, all the way up to us. It's absolutely the most important, and it's got its own hormone to regulate that. So we look at all those along with the adrenal. The adrenal has, we test 11 different functions in the adrenal, and 4 of those are hormones, and the rest are not. So we look at those, and then the gonads, they produce both ovaries and testes, they both produce the same hormones. The pregnenolone DHA converts into progesterone, progesterone converts into testosterone, testosterone converts into estrogen. That happens at different levels or different amounts in men and women, but the same progression happens in both of us. So we test all those, and that's completely upside down as far as it can be. We scale things on a scale of 1 to 10. All that's at a 10. The gut is pretty serious. It's all the gut functions, those are at a 10. The detox functions in the liver, the phase 1 is a 6 out of 10. Phase 2 is 8. That's a pathological detoxing. If 1's going to be sluggish, you want phase 1 to be sluggish, because phase 1 makes free radicals. Phase 2 converts those free radicals into water-soluble forms so we can excrete them. And you don't want a lot of free radicals going around. So you always want phase 2 to be more efficient than phase 1. And this kind of detox creates a lot of problems, and it's toxicity that creates most of the symptoms going on. The gut flora is really a mess. It's got parasites, yeast, mold, fungus, virus, and odd bacteria in it. The food intolerances is off the scale. Once again, 10 out of 10. We look at brain function. It's a 10 out of 10, and that's circulation, oxygen, blood-brain barrier, toxicity, immune function, nerve function, all that. No infection in the brain, but it's extremely toxic. And the most reactive organs we have to oxidation is the eyes and the sinus, and those are way up there too. Calorie intake's about 80% throughout. Proteins 50%. Oils are 60%. Carbs are 120. And that's really typical of people. People tend to load up on carbs and not enough protein and oils, and that always bends physiology sideways. We need more. Always need whatever our intake needs are. We all need that full of protein and oils, because that's your structure, your basis to rebuild cells, hormone function, nerve function, and all that. So you look at somebody with major cognitive problems like a misdiagnosis of Parkinson, this can be a really huge factor. The really well hydrated, and she's also got a really high level of shedding going on. That's primarily from the Moderna. We look at infective issues. She's got like 8 varieties of Lyme disease. Extremely high numbers as far as that goes. There's pretty close to the same amount of numbers of Babesia. And Babesia is by far the worst of the Lyme disease. It's way worse than Lyme itself, and it takes a lot longer to clear. There's Ehrlichia, Rickettsia, no Bartonella. The Bartonella is pretty uncommon. Mycoplasma, reactive to all the dementias, Alzheimer's, ALS, MS, Parkinson's. Yeast in Candida in 4 different forms. Real high toxicity coming off the bacterial infections and the fungal yeast infections. That's acetaldehyde, which is 7 times more toxic than embalming fluid, formaldehyde, and bacteria and parasites typically throw out ammonia. So those are extremely high. This person has Epstein-Barr, hepatitis, and HPV, along with a host of other fluid transfer diseases going on. So we look at this and you go, wow, that is pretty major. We commonly see this. I look for it, and it's not like I'm trying to put a label on people. I look for all these things. This is why our results are what they are and why others just can't even compare to what our results are. So we look at all this stuff, and all this localizes to a few different things. The Candida with the leaky gut, that's one of the primary roots. We look at the food intolerances, that's another primary root. That always goes with Candida. It's always a huge factor. So those are given as far as that goes. And the third one, which is out of the box, for what most people, but most people don't realize the studies with dementia and Lyme disease, but Lyme disease, Babesia in particular, is the third major root problem. There's brain banks in America with Alzheimer's. People have died from Alzheimer's. They just dissect those and put those in brain banks for future studies, trying to figure out what's going on with it. When they do studies, 75 to 100% of those brains in the Alzheimer's brain bank are full of Lyme disease. In Greenland, there's brain banks of MS, because MS is endemic in Greenland. When they do studies of those brains in those brain banks, 75 to 100% of those is full of Lyme disease. A lot of people don't realize how big a factor Lyme disease is in dementia. Dehydration is the first one. Malnutrition is going to be the second as far as that goes. Toxicity is going to be third, and Lyme disease is one of the kings of producing toxicity, because Lyme disease always builds off of Candida. So you got Lyme disease always comes with a host of co-infections. We've got several forms of Ehrlichia, several forms of rickettsia. We got almost 2 handfuls of Lyme bacteria and almost 2 handfuls of Babesia, along with Candida and other bacteria inside of the colon. So this is a host of things going on, and this is what's driving all of the brain issues. This is what's driving the symptom that the doctor's been calling Parkinson's, and the medications they have been giving this person haven't helped one bit, hasn't slowed the progression down, hasn't got them any better. So we started working with this person. With the food intolerances, there's major ones in several families, the dairy family, the grain family, proteins. If you're buying proteins in the grocery market, that all comes from the feedlot. Feedlot's always got really toxic food in it, and those are going to be a major problem. Also, farmed seafood is going to do the same thing. Those are really toxic foods. Those are really a big issue. There's major problems with oils, nightshades, sugars, nuts, and several environmental toxins. So this is one of those things, how do you unwind all this? We developed ways to unwind this, and as I said, the three primary root issues in this is Candida with a leaky gut. Those always go together. You won't have a leaky gut without Candida problems. You won't have Candida without leaky gut. When the gut leaks, within 2 hours the brain's leaking, and that's how you get all this toxicity into the brain, because the blood-brain barrier is broken when the gut is leaking like that. So We give them a list of what their food intolerances are, and you eat the holes in that as far as that goes. So that's how you manage dietary issues. As far as the fad diets go, those don't work. Some of them are lethal. A lot of them are serious cases of malnutrition, and a few of them are just major hormone disruptors. Some of the most common fad diets out there, the most popular that are spreading around, keto, paleo, we know keep people in those industries that is killed. And the carnivore is serious malnutrition. You cannot get your nutrients out of a carnivore diet. And that, we've seen that create major metabolic problems to set the stage for things you don't want to see. And it's not a surprise this person I'm talking about, the history of precancerous issues in the gut, that was managed and kept at bay, but all that's created because all this toxicity that's coming out of the gut, and that's what creates those things. So we started a protocol, doing a foundation, really high quality multi-fish oil, calcium, and then you start building supplements on top of that for different metabolic functions, different metabolic systems, testing each one of those one at a time as you build it from a foundation up to find which is the right one, and then we test for dosage on top of that also. So we set all that up. We tell people, don't just stop eating these foods. Substitute them with things that are good. That's vital, because you'll have people have a calorie crash, and they won't be able to take any supplements that you need. It creates too much of an osmotic imbalance in the gut, and it salts it out, and the gut's just too upset to do anything. So you've got to be really careful as to how you start all this. You got to handpick the antimicrobials, and there's a multitude of combinations of those that are different for different people, and they always change as you start to heal. Follow up a week later, there's already significant change going on. A significant increase of energy and cognitive function, lessening of a plethora of what the major complaints are. And you might think that's odd, because people have these things for a lifetime and they never get better. That's because they don't get the right kind of care. It's common for us to see significant improvement in days to 2 weeks. People have had things for decades and seen multiple doctors. The doctors just don't have the tools to figure out what it is. And we've developed the tools we have for a long time. The Lord's a huge part of developing those and empowering what we do. So that you have, this isn't Parkinson's. It's spillover of all the toxicity from the Candida, leaky gut, Lyme disease issues, and food intolerances was creating all of these Parkinson's symptoms. And I expect these to fully resolve by the time we're done. So there you have it. This is Your Health Reclaimed. We release these episodes every Monday and Thursday. Subscribe to the channel and follow us, and leave a review on these. It'll keep us going. Share these with a friend, because what we just talked about, you're not going to hear that very often. But I fully expect this person to completely get their health and their life back. And most of that's going to happen inside of 6 months. That's pretty good for having it for over 30 years right now. So, thank you. We'll see you next time.